On April 13th, DC released the titles and some content for the 2022 annual Pride Anthology. The anthology will include some expected things, such as a story about recently out Tim Drake and his boyfriend Bernard, and another story about recently out Superman Jonathan Kent. Stories featuring Kid Quick, Jackson Hyde, and Kate Kane were also very much expected. And as with anything Pride at DC, there would be a story featuring Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. There would also be some stories about characters who didn't have as much time in the spotlight and hadn't had stories in previous Pride anthologies. Jo Malone, The Ray, Queen Nubia, and Alicia Yao being the main ones. It would also feature an intro by Nicole Maines and a story written by Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, for many, many years. But the thing that caught the attention of many Arrow family fans was the preview image for the story Think of Me, which showed the silhouette of what was obviously a Robin and a silhouette of a member of the Arrow family, mostly matching that of one Connor Hawke. And the reason this caught so many people's attention is because Connor Hawke has yet to be confirmed queer in any timeline, unlike the other characters in the Pride Anthology who were already out and had to come out outside of Pride itself. On April 18th, it was then announced that Connor Hawke would be coming out as asexual. And while this was shocking and exciting, it wasn't exactly a surprise, but a finally, because Connor Hawke fans have waited a long time for Connor to be revealed as queer ever since the earliest days of his creation. He's basically been queer-coded since 1994, and there's actually a lot of evidence to back it up. Queer coding is kind of explained in the name. It's when a character is coded to be LGBT and the audience reads them that way. This isn't always intentional, and when it is, it's normally because the authors and creators of the works were told that they couldn't actually have the characters be LGBT in the work itself. I do want to say that queer coding takes up many forms and is about all forms of queerness, but the ones I am going to be talking about today are about sexuality rather than gender, simply because Connor Hawke's queer coding mostly comes from his sexuality. The first type of coding is working in stereotypes, having the characters be depicted in well-known gender or sexuality stereotypes. Think pretty much any queer character on Glee if they never got to come out of the closet. Then we have the ways that characters interact with the opposite gender. How do they interact with their love interest? Or why don't they have a love interest? Why do they seem so against the idea of being romantically or sexually involved with anyone of the opposite gender? When writers do eventually give these characters a love interest of the opposite gender, it's always a little uncomfortable. What do you mean Zari's in a relationship with Nate? She's been lesbian or arrow ace this whole time. Then we have the way characters interact with the same gender as coding. There's so much green lipstick on my... How does this male interact with other males? By getting up in their face, of course. Casually mentioning that they'll find specific characters of the same gender hot, but then quickly backtracking it. Dropping their jaw every time they see a sexy or shirtless person of the same gender. Yes, this is where a lot of shipping comes from. What do you mean Zari's straight? She's been in love with Charlie and Amaya the whole time. Now, queer coding is not universally read the same, and I don't mean in the homophobic people denying that any character could ever be queer because they're homophobes kind of way. I mean in a not every queer person is going to have the same queer reading as you kind of way. And I don't mean in the, I headcanon a character as lesbian, but this other person headcanons them as arrow ace. I mean in a, I headcanon this character as queer kind of way, and then another different queer person does not in any way see this character as queer kind of way. And that's okay. I don't know why I felt the need to explain this in a video about why Connor Hawke was queer the whole time. Anyways. Connor Hawke was created by Kelly Puckett and Jim Aparo, first appearing in Green Arrow Volume 2, Number 0, which was published 90 issues into the Green Arrow run at the time, but you know what? Whatever. Chuck Dixon then took over in issue 93 and wrote the book till its end in issue 137. So while Chuck Dixon didn't create Connor, he did have a hand in shaping his earliest appearances and depictions. Connor is the son of Oliver Queen, the first Green Arrow, and Sandra Hawke, a woman that he had a brief fling with. Sandra raised Connor as a single mother, and like Oliver, was a hippie, so pretty against violence, encouraging Connor to feel the same. Connor actually wanted to join a monastery, and his mother dropped him off at one when he was 13. There he became a student of Buddhist philosophy, Aikido, and archery. When Connor was 18, Oliver rejoined the monastery and got to know Connor even though he was unaware that he was his son. Oliver eventually leaves the monastery and takes Connor with him, meeting up with his old friend Eddie Fires. Oliver gets kidnapped by Parallax Hal Jordan at one point. It's funny that Hal keeps turning evil, and I'm done pretending that it's not. Who tells Ollie that Connor is his son? Oliver does not take it well.
Oliver then dies saving Metropolis, and Connor decides to take up his legacy, becoming the second Green Arrow.
The rest of the book then follows Connor's adventures, joined by Eddie Fires as his father/uncle figure. Also occasionally joined by Shadow, his mother Sandra, his arms dealer stepfather Milo Armitage as a reoccurring antagonist, and Master Jensen from the monastery. He also has quite a few team-ups with other heroes, including Best Robin Tim Drake and Best Green Lantern Kyle Rayner. Chuck Dixon's goal when taking over the book was to depict Connor as the opposite of Oliver Queen. While Oliver was somewhat retconned to be more of a playboy, Connor didn't have any love interests and wasn't really interested in casual sex. While Oliver was a hippie, Connor was intended to be less extreme and more of a centrist. While Oliver was a cisgender heterosexual white man, Connor was a cisgender heterosexual Black and Korean man. Not gonna lie, I don't think Chuck embraced how opposite Connor could be from Oliver. Connor did eventually join the JLA, but it was only for about 10 issues. Post the 90s run, when Oliver comes back to life, Connor becomes a supporting character in Oliver's book, where he is whitewashed. Whole lot of whitewashing.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
Oh my god, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
Speaking of that, I really need someone to change the picture for Connor Hawke on Wikipedia. Not just because it's whitewashed, but it's just a really ugly picture of my son. Seriously, it doesn't even look like him. What are you and what have you done with my boy? The first instance we have of Connor not being the straightest person in the world is when he and Eddie are watching an episode of Baywatch. Instead of focusing on how scantily clad the women are, Connor just comments that they should actually cut their hair to prevent drag. When Connor is short on money and he starts doing paid gigs in a wrestling ring, one of the women referees gives Connor the key to her motel room. Instead of understanding what she's implying, Connor just says he already has a room and gives her back the key. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know the thought process for the writing decisions involving this next chunk because they're just really uncomfortable. Connor is introduced to a woman named Melanie, aka Crackshot. She instantly makes out with him and constantly puts herself in positions that makes it very obvious that she wants to have sex with him. Connor tries to turn her down with this. My dad was a womanizer, the love 'em and leave 'em type. I inherited his weird attraction to women. I mean, their attraction for him. Crackshot would come back later and continue to fail at getting Connor to sleep with her. Please stop pinching his butt. She is also the second character to ask if Connor is gay. We'll get to the first one later. And now a list of minor moments where Connor is accused of not being straight and is just genuinely confused about people asking him if he likes women. Mia Dearden asking Connor if he's ever had a girlfriend and Connor just replying with an awkward, Ollie asking him what the story is with Connor and girls, and Connor decides he's not having this conversation. Oliver basically implies that Connor's not into women, and Connor has to hastily add in, I swear I'm straight. Grace asking if Connor being a monk has anything to do with him being gay. The 2001 run really wanted some coding in there, is all I'm saying. Connor gets led to a mystical ghost garden. I think that's the best way to put it. Where Lady Wren believes that Connor is her lost love reincarnated. She's into him, but he's all like, "Lady, here is this thing that this man asked me to bring you. Please stop cuddling me." "Hey, remember me, baby?" No, I don't." Ma'am, I am not your last boyfriend. Please stop." She decides that they have to have sex then. And Connor is still very much trying to convince her that he's not her boyfriend, even as she pulls him down to start making out with him. It's a little unclear if they actually did have sex or if they just made out while he was shirtless and she was naked. After Wren is seemingly killed and they leave the ghost garden, Eddie comments about how hard Connor seemed to fall for Lady Wren. "My dude, it was an hour. It's not that deep if he wants to save a girl from a shitty life." Connor then has the briefest relationship with Mia at the end of his run. She was one of the tenants in his building when he was a landlord, and boy does that make me uncomfortable. In the last issue, they kiss, and knowing everything I do about Chuck Dixon, it feels like he's yelling, Look, Connor's straight, he's totally into women. Part of his character arc was realizing that women should be dated. Isn't that satisfying? And no, Chuck, no, it is not. There's also his reaction to Jet. When he realizes that she wants to sleep with him, his immediate reaction is, "Really? Again? How often is this gonna happen to me?" He's very confused by Kyle Rayner's obsession with pretty girls. Master Jensen eyes up a strip club at one point, and Connor's like, "No, we're getting you away from there. That's just more confusing. Let's go." When he, Wally, and Kyle decide to go on a cruise together, which, yes, Flash, Lantern, Green Arrow trio, my beloved. Wally and Kyle talk about their possible lady loves, and that even when Kyle is the one flirting, Connor seems to be the one getting all the attention from women. And every time, Connor is just non-reactive to it. They also discuss whether or not Connor has lost his virginity yet, and Connor's not entirely sure. Like, he's pretty sure he had sex with a ghost trademark Teddy Hyde, but not 100% sure. Now, you can't exactly bring up Connor's coding without bringing up Green Lantern Kyle Rayner. Again, best Green Lantern. That is my boy. Now, I'm going to mention that Hal and Oliver's rather iconic comic book friendship also has its own queer, polyamorous interpretations if you add in Dinah. But for now, we're just going to talk about hard-traveling heroes the next generation. Minus a Black Canary. Whereas Eddie fires the Black Canary in this situation. It's a little confusing. They need a Black Canary. Connor and Kyle first meet when Connor is in New York looking for his mother. They are attacked by some goons and are rescued by the newest Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner. Why do I preface that? It's Green Lantern Kyle Rayner every time. Y'all know it's Green Lantern Kyle Rayner. Both remark on how neither is Hal Jordan or Oliver Queen, and then mention how those two used to team up as well. They catch the bad guy, set up some future team-up stuff, and quickly bond over their strained relationship with their parents. When Connor goes to leave, how do I explain how this is framed? So you know how in a TV show they'll have a normal episode and they'll bring in a character to team up with the other character and they'll go on a whole adventure, and then the episode ends where they have a nice talk and then one of them walks off awkwardly and it's a little... And you just know that those two characters are going to end up together. Feels the same way here. See you around then, Green Arrow. Some other time, Green Lantern. If you ever need help, look me up. Thanks. Thanks a lot. It's just a little, Connor and Kyle then meet up again when Kyle asks Connor for help looking for his father. Daddy issues, the staple of every DC hero. And some of the Marvel ones. They have a nice little lunch at a diner where Kyle points out that the waitress was into Connor, much to Connor's confusion. Connor pretty much states that he doesn't want to hook up with her, and Kyle assumes that this is Connor's way of telling him that he's gay. Which Kyle's cool with. Really cool with. Extremely cool with. Guys, I don't think Kyle Rayner is straight. Connor then says that he's not gay. He's always thought of himself as straight, which, like, okay, Connor, so did I for the first 14 years of my life, but look at me now. Connor just chalks it up to him not pausing every 5 seconds to stare at women and living in a monastery for the past 5 years, and as a result, not having much experience. Kyle then decides that he's going to show Connor how to flirt, and Connor's not paying attention to this at all. Connor and Kyle then continue their road trip to try and find Kyle's dad, and whether or not they're falling in love the whole time is an interpretation that's up to you. But they don't find Kyle's dad and go on their separate ways. They meet up again when Connor is visiting his mom, and I swear every time they interact, Kyle is just flirting with Connor and disguising it as superheroing. Hey baby, long time no see. Why don't you give me a call later? We can suit up and do the hero thing. Okay, I'm never doing that again. What? Also, every time they meet up, they feel the need to reiterate that Hal and Ollie used to team up, and it's like, guys, shut up, we know. That has nothing to do with any queer coding. It's a general complaint I have about the run. Kyle gives Connor a tour of the city and tells him that he thinks of him at certain moments. And they plan to go get dinner, and Kyle gives Connor a ride on a dragon. If Chuck Dixon is homophobic, why did he make them go on a date? It also includes Kyle being upset that their date ended with a race riot. By the way, to anyone who says that comics are just now starting to incorporate politics into their storytelling, I have some bad news for you. I'm not saying that the storyline was handled well, I'm just saying that they've always been in comics. Kyle takes Connor on another date to a coffee shop. When the JLA shows up for a different team-up adventure, Connor sticks with Kyle the whole time. They awkwardly flirt some more. I'm not even gonna bring up the DC holiday special. For the past who knows how long, there have been rumors that Connor Hawke was originally going to be gay, but that got thrown out when Chuck Dixon took over the book. I cannot find a source. I have tried to find a source, but I cannot find it. There have also been rumors that Ron Mars pitched that Connor and Kyle should be a couple, but got shot down by Chuck Dixon and DC. I cannot find a source on this either. I tried very hard with this one, but I could not find it. Cannot prove that Connor and Kyle were meant to be a couple. The final rumor that I've heard is that Ron Mars actually pitched that Connor and Kyle should kiss for Connor to realize that he's not gay. Which, if that one is true, man, we dodged a bullet there. Now, most of this video has been me sticking to canon moments with a few of my own interpretations thrown in. But I had to address these because they are such prevalent rumors in the fandom. Despite the fact that there's no source, they're still treated like fact. And while it was literally impossible for me to find a source on those rumors, it was pretty easy for me to find how Chuck Dixon feels about the idea of Connor Hawke being gay. Or any superhero for that matter. I don't want to expect to be able to shield my kids from the subject of homosexuality, as the media seems intent on bringing it into my home, and nothing short of cutting the electricity and boarding the windows will stop it. But I don't want my kids reading about it in comics. I don't want Judd Winnick or Grant Morrison or the Nimrod who wrote the Rawhide Kid comic informing my kids about many facets and lifestyle choices out there in the world. I'd like to be the one to talk to them about it, and when they're older and I feel the time is right. I especially object to them using characters familiar to my kids to present this worldview. Could you leave the Beast and Green Lantern alone? When I decided to include this quote, Grant Morrison hadn't even revealed that he wanted Hal Jordan to be pansexual at that point. Damn, Chuck, damn. It's weird that despite him saying this in 2003, almost 20 years ago, I'm still hearing two of the arguments in the article. One, think of the children! It's not like there's queer children anywhere. And two, stop putting the LGBTs in this thing I like. I kept hearing that one when people suggested that Finn and Poe should be a couple in Star Wars. How dare they hypothetically acknowledge that gay people exist in my childhood franchise? Meanwhile, all the queer people are yelling, please, please acknowledge gay people in my childhood franchise. Your favorite comic book characters don't just belong to you, Chuck. Haha, he wrote 2, well-known runs for 2 characters who recently came out of the closet. Ha ha! We can keep this going, guys! Booster Gold is next! Once Oliver came back to the dead, he and Connor decided to share the Green Arrow mantle, although Connor did get pushed way more to the wayside and in the background. My poor boy. I can't even remember the last time he and Kyle interacted. It was Green Arrow, Volume 3, number 25, in May 2003. It's been almost 20 years since they've interacted. Do not make it a full 20, DC. Everyone hold hands. We're gonna manifest Kyle and Connor interacting in the DC Pride Annual. Of this year, not next year, this year. Anyways, Oliver doesn't really like Kyle, despite him obviously being the love of Connor's life. So when Oliver does eventually come out to Oliver, I want his worst fear to be that Connor is dating Kyle. Or a member of the Bat family. I mean, I would be scared of that too, my guy. The only option is Jason Todd. Nope. Volume 3 actually has a really interesting conversation with Roy and Connor, specifically in issue 32, which had a cover. Oliver wants Connor out of the house, and Roy decides he's going to be the one to take him out. On a night on the town. Connor initially wants to go to a bookstore, but Roy wants to do something else and decides that they're going to go to a strip club. While there, one of the strippers/waitresses, I'm not entirely sure, calls Connor a friend of Madonna. For those that don't understand language, the term friend of Dorothy was code so that queer men could communicate to each other in public, letting each other know that they were like them. The code became the way it is due to Judy Garland, who is best known for playing Dorothy Gale in Wizard of Oz, being a gay icon. Madonna was/is also a gay icon, and this phrase was probably the modern equivalent in 2003. I don't know what it is for the 2020s. I know what it is for lesbians, though. Does she, listen to Girl in Red? Connor questions why everyone assumes he's gay just because he doesn't chase women. Roy explains that it's because he's an attractive dude, and attractive dudes, normally they're chasing women. Ergo, people are gonna think he's gay if he doesn't go after women. Which feels sexist, but I don't know how. It's also the additional fact that Connor's not really into stereotypical macho things such as cars and sports. Ergo, he's gay. Connor explains that he's just looking for the right person, someone to fall in love with. He's not like Oliver and Roy and finds it hard to relate to them due to their more hypersexuality. Also, Connor can't drive, which I'm not saying it's a true gay stereotype, but I am saying my roommate can't. Roy suggests that maybe one of the strippers could be the love of Connor's life, and Connor tries to get him to understand that he's just not really into sex when they're interrupted by a convenience store robbery. We don't get really any big coding moments for the rest of the run, and Connor's appearances would start to dwindle as the years would go on. His last major story arc being in 2007 with Connor Hawke, Dragon's Blood. This was once again written by Chuck Dixon, and his whole goal of the book seemed to be to shut down any and all rumors that Connor was anything other than straight. They reinforce the ghost sex. Okay. While talking to Eddie, Connor casually refers to dreaming about a him when referring to Oliver, but I think Eddie is now starting to think that Connor's not exactly straight, which makes him the who the fuck knows number of person. He joins an archery tournament, and so many girls there find him attractive, which needs to be pointed out to him. He even asks one of them out, which I'm not against. It's very much Mr. Chuck Dixon's heterosexual agenda, because it's very clear at the end of the date that they're gonna go have sex. And then, for some unknown reason, Chuck decided it would be a good idea for Connor to make out with Shadow, his father's rapist and the mother of his half-brother. Connor proceeded to be in limbo, and it wasn't going to get any better, because the worst thing to happen to comics came to be. In Final Crisis number 2, August 2008, Barry Allen came back from the dead. I was gonna, subvert the last sentence and say it actually wasn't the worst thing to happen to comics, but no, this was genuinely one of the worst things to happen to comics. It's garbage and ruined comics forever. Bringing back a character that no one liked and everyone actually found incredibly boring for who knows why, then have him 5 years later, which is about 6 months in comic book time, cause the reset of the entire DC universe. No, I don't care that I just hit the microphone. One day. I deserve to be transported into comics just to fight Barry Allen. Barry becoming my least favorite character in all of comics caused the New 52 to happen. And boy, did the New 52 not like legacy characters. It would separate sidekicks from their mentors a lot of the time, and even erase a few out of existence, including Best Flash Wally West, Where Is My Girl Sissy King Jones, and best member of the Arrow fam, Connor Hawke. So Connor didn't exist for 5 years, and while I said that 5 years is 6 months in comic book time, it's not really the same thing when your favorite character has been missing. And Connor was pretty much kept in limbo even when he was brought back. He so far had less than 30 appearances since he was brought back in Rebirth in 2016. Meaning that in a post-fuck you Barry Allen world, all of Connor's major appearances during the 2010s were on there was a time when I, enjoyed this show and, I actually wanted the spinoff to get picked up. But no, I'm an Arrow fam stan now, and it had nothing to do with this series. Green Batman did nothing for me. I really hated Oliver Queen in this show. He was so awful. I was like, thank God he dies at the end. Spoiler alert, he dies at the end, but why do you care? You don't watch Arrow, or you already did watch Arrow. The problems with Connor Hawke in this show start in Season 2, Episode 20. Oliver tells his mom that he cheated on Laurel and got someone pregnant, and, this woman's a little pale. Just saying. I mean, not as pale as me, but still. On IMDb, she was originally credited as Sandra, but this was changed when in Season 4 it was revealed that her name was Samantha Clayton. Oliver's mother, Moira, paid off Samantha to tell Oliver that she had a miscarriage. Samantha did so and raised her son in secret. Oliver finds out about it years later, and we get to meet William Clayton. The show actually splits Connor into 3 different characters, and we're not even gonna, touch one of them. So let's get to the one that actually has the Connor Hawke name. Well, there was an alternate universe Connor Hawke who was actually John Diggle's secret son, whose real name was John Diggle Jr. That was confusing. In the main timeline, Connor Hawke is the son of Bronze Tiger and Sandra Hawke. Flash forwards to the future reveal that Connor was adopted by John Diggle and his wife Lila when his parents died. Apparently this still happens even after Oliver creates a perfect future and all that, or whatever. In the dystopian timeline, Connor is nothing like his comics counterpart. For starters, he's really boring. They make him just a generic secret agent and don't give him any complicated relationship with his parents or even acknowledge that he's a Buddhist. Instead, it's a very boring, my parents loved me or took care of me more than they did my brother, who eventually became Deathstroke. It's so fucking weird and stupid. That kind of dynamic did not exist between Roy and Connor in the comics, nor with any other of the Arrow kids. Unless there's a comic that I've missed, which in that case I'm wrong, but only if I missed the comic. They then do something that is just all kinds of disturbing if you know the comics. They have him not just be explicitly straight, but into Mia Queen, who is based on Mia Dearden, his sister in the comics. You know, Thea Queen is also based on Mia Dearden in this show, and she hooks up with Roy, who is also Oliver's son in the comics. What is it with Arrow having characters who are Oliver's kids or relatives and having them hook up with characters who are also Oliver's kids? But truly the worst part of this is that they proceed to make their OC Oliver Queen's son explicitly gay. It's not like Connor Hawke had been coded to be queer for years. What was so hard about just making William Connor? Aside from, the whitewashing, which was easily fixed if you just had originally casted someone who was Black and Korean to play Sandra and then someone who was Black and Korean to play her son. It was not that hard. You could have done it. You could have found the actor. I'm going to move on from Arrow because I don't want to talk about this show anymore. For now, at least. I'll find another reason to complain about it. Like I said, Connor was reintroduced back during Rebirth, but there was nothing really on the coding side of things. They then actually used him in a comic and brought him into the Robin book. Well, at least he's not boring to talk about in that series, I'll give you that. Not much on the coding things here, though. Unless you're weird. And by weird, I mean stop shipping the whole ass adult with the teenager. I'm serious. And before anyone goes, no, Connor's a teenager in the main continuity, blah, blah, blah. No, I am the DC age expert here. Listen to me. Tim is 4 to 5 years younger than Connor, and Tim is also 6 years older than Damien. Ergo, Damien, age 14, Connor Hawke, 25. Stop shipping them together, people. Stop. And with that note, we are back to where we started, with the reveal that Connor will be coming out as Ace. Whenever a character, especially a comic character, comes out, there's always a bunch of straight people that like to yell, "Can't believe they're ruining my childhood with the woke agenda. They can't retcon things like this. How dare they? This comes right out of nowhere. Excuse me, what's the narrative point of this?" Which is annoying for a variety of reasons. A good chunk of these people don't even read the comics and just want to complain about the existence of LGBTQIA+ people in fiction. Almost like comics right there. It's not just comics that they hate gay people in. Trust me, if they did read them, they know that Connor Hawke isn't being race-bent in the current continuity. But the yelling of retcons and things being out of character and coming out of nowhere are frankly ridiculous, especially for the last 3 major characters that DC has had come out. Tim Drake being queer was seen as obvious by queer fans who had been reading him that way for years. And even many of the writers had written him that way. With John Kent, what even was there to retcon with him coming out as bi? He was 10 for most of his existence, then had a magical girl age up to 17 and started dating a guy. And even then, there were hints when he was younger that he wasn't exactly straight. And Connor, we literally just spent this entire video going through all the reasons people have been reading him as ace and also gay for years. And you didn't need me to do this. Editor Andrea Shea actually tweeted out a thread showing all of the build-up to Connor coming out as ace and his story, literally providing evidence for those who wanted to know more and for those saying it was inaccurate to the character. And in this tweet, she directly says that this isn't a retcon, and she's right. There's been a completely valid ace reading of Connor for years, just as there's been a completely valid reading of other sexualities for him for years. And thus, it's given a narrative reason. Connor has spent the last 28 years of his existence on panel not having a word to describe himself. He finally now has that label. And isn't that the narrative point of every character coming out? In all honesty, there doesn't need to be one. The narrative reason that people are queer in real life is that they're queer. And for every queer fan, that's enough for fiction as well. And oh my god, can we acknowledge the rubber number 15 variant? Oh my god, it's just so beautiful. I mean, look at it. I need this like every June. So Connor, get your own book, or at the very least to team up with Kyle. So that way we can get it every June. I really want a cover for him every June because oh my god. Thank you all for watching. For very obvious reasons, I've seen a lot of attention given to best member of the Arrow fam and really just wanted to explain an ace icon. That being said, Sissy King Jones is still the best DC Archer, and I am not changing my mind on that. DC has actually been giving us a little queer gift basically every other month, sometimes every month. So who do you think is next? Or at the very least, who do you want to be next? Here are my predictions / wants and desires. Please tell me yours in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as well, and I will see you all next time. Bye.